Well, hello, friend. How are you? Happy Association Transformation Day.
It
I
is the
just made that
season
up.
of association transformation.
Yeah, you didn't like it when I said it's the season of membership. So I'm going to say, every day is Association Transformation Day.
Every day is a day to transform an association. Um,
There you go.
yeah,
There
there
you
you
go.
go. Yeah, how are you?
I'm good. I'm excited. You have I don't know, news update, breaking news, a topical a topical
Topical,
yeah,
topical. Yes, you know I like to bring these.
topical I don't know,
Yeah,
what would you call this? Is this a hubbub? Is this a tussle? Is this what fun word would you use to describe this?
nothing that nothing I want to put on the podcast.
Oh, okay. Okay.
It's interesting. It's an interesting sort of take on the dynamics in our sector, in the
Okay.
tensions in between volunteers and members and our organisations as sort of body corporates. I think let's talk about it.
Okay.
Let's talk about
Yeah,
there's a
you've sent me
yeah.
several articles and even something I'd never really seen before, open letters. And so lay the groundwork for people who are not in the UK.
So we're going to talk about an organisation called the NCVO, which is the National Council for Voluntary Organisations.
Okay.
It
So
is
an association of associations.
no, it is an it is a membership organisation. It is in that sense it is an association, but it is for charities.
Okay. Okay. So it's an association of charities.
Of charities, yes, absolutely.
Okay. And
Pretty
it's
pretty
for their staff. Do the charities join, or is it a support community for
charities
charity
join.
staff?
No, charities
Okay.
join. Charities join.
Okay.
It is probably the preeminent sort of um, advocacy body for the charity sector in the UK.
Okay.
Charities, regardless of what size they are, the big beasts right down to the small local groups. You can join NCVO. NCVO has a lot of resources around available to you. How to run your charity, how to fund,
Okay.
get best at a fundraising, how to communicate with, potential donors, the whole what you would expect out of, of a network, as we get out of ASAE, in the US
Okay.
context, it's that type of organization.
A
It's
sector support group.
Exactly. It is a membership organization. However, it's never
Okay.
really spoken in terms of being a membership body because it is so heavily grounded. Its foundations are in charity sector. It is
Hmm.
usually spoken about only in a sort of charities context, not in a membership context. It's
Sure.
very
Sure.
very rare that NCVO comes across my desk in any other context other than we exist to provide charities to do good stuff for their organizations.
But it
Well,
sounds like the members are pretty mad.
it sounds like the members are, to quote, shocked and blindsided, because recently, now NCVO has done a bit of restructuring in its organization. It's laid off some staff. It's making people redundant. It's done a
Okay.
bit of a restructure. It's also recruiting some additional staff elsewhere in the organization at different levels of the organization, recognizing that it needs to be responsive to the distinct circumstances of the sector, of the charity sector. So, it's the leadership team has obviously looked at its current staffing structure and thought, actually, we want to do a bit of rejigging, we want to do a bit of redesign, we want to make sure that we're as efficient and as effective as possible. It's totally
Okay.
fine.
So when you say restructure, we're talking about operational,
Yes.
not governance, not
No.
not anything
No.
outwardly focused. We're talking about how they handle their business internally.
Pretty much. Pretty much.
Okay.
Now, on the face of it, I mean that's just running your organization. That's just doing good business. That's what every
Yeah.
organization, regardless of whether you're membership, profit, non-profit, whatever, that's just good. That's just good business. Now, I need to contextualize a little bit more about. There's some drama materialized around this restructure recently. A few years ago, there were a couple of organisations in the UK that were specifically dedicated to supporting small charities.
Small. Small.
So that really would be your local. I'm talking charities that don't have staff, charities who are
Yeah.
maybe only probably less than 500,000 turnover,
Okay.
maybe even only maybe even a few, maybe even 100,000 turnover. Really small local groups. There was a couple of organisations. They were called the Small
The
Charities.
foundation, yeah, the
Yes,
Foundation for Social Improvement and the
that's it.
Small Charities Coalition. So two
That's
separate
it.
organizations, similar mission, and they closed
They
or
closed down.
they were
They closed down.
absorbed.
No, they
Okay.
closed down. Both those organisations were separate entities. In 2022, the Small Charities Coalition closed its doors. It basically its funding model was unsustainable.
Mhm.
It relied on small charities paying fees to be members of it.
Okay.
Clearly, that wasn't um, sustainable. I think probably it suffered a lot post pandemic or during pandemic. Post pandemic, then its funding model simply wasn't sustainable, so they took the decision back in the spring 2022 they were going to close. A year later,
Okay.
in spring 2023, the foundation, sorry, what did we call it again? I forget.
Foundation for Social Improvement.
There you go. That was another similarly focused organisation dedicated to ensuring, that volunteer-led, grassroots charities had some resources at their disposal to help them be efficient and effective. They
Okay.
were similar circumstances. They closed their doors in spring 2023. Your hand is up. Please ask questions. The class
So
ask questions for the rest of the class.
when they
Yep.
closed on their own schedules for their own yet related reasons, were their assets remaining?
Yes.
Closing a nonprofit, closing a charity, closing an association is not a quick and simple thing. What resources did they have in their bank accounts when they closed? And what happened to
Oh,
those assets?
now, I don't know what reason. I don't know about the financial assets. I don't have. I don't know what cash they had left. Presumably not a lot. But you're
Uh-huh.
absolutely right. In the UK context, if you wind up a charitable organisation, you are obligated to gift that cash to another charitable organisation
Oh,
who's doing
okay.
similar
Okay.
similar charitable activities. What I do know is that the assets that they had, the tangible assets that they had, that they were the guidance and support documentation, the materials they were using to provide support to their members were
Hmm.
gifted to the NCVO,
Okay.
and
Okay.
NCVO set up, sort of recognizing that there was a gap that needed to be filled. They were gifted these sector-funded assets, learning resources, training materials, campaign infrastructure materials, stuff that you could, use to launch your small charity week, all these types of stuff were gifted to
Assets.
assets. Yeah, were
Yeah.
gifted to the
Intellectual
NCVO.
property assets. Yeah.
Yes, and they were made available to people on the NCVO's website or through other platforms. Right? Okay, cool. It's pretty standard. It's a shame that those organisations wound up, but their assets were still
Yeah.
made available to the general public, people working in the charity sector.
Were the members of Foundation for Social Improvement and or the Small Charities Coalition, were they given membership or encouraged to then join NCVO? Like, were they transferred over as well?
It's a good question. It's a really good question. Now, arguably, I don't know. Again, I don't know about that. None of that information is available in the material that I've been
Okay.
reading. What I do
None of the
know
members'
is,
concerns, the members' concerns or the members' needs
well, yeah,
weren't
indeed,
mentioned.
indeed. What has sort of blown up now is that right. So that's 2, 3 years, 4 years of history there. These assets have
Yeah.
been available. Okay, fine. What has materialized in recent weeks is this suggestion that NCVO's dedicated support for small charities has now disappeared following this internal restructure.
Okay.
Um, and that has led to an almighty public bunfight around
A what?
a bun fight.
A BUN
Yeah,
fight?
yeah, yeah. BUN fight, bun
Okay,
fight.
okay. A bun
A
fight.
a
Okay.
public spat, a public sort of uh,
A
bloodletting
rift.
of
Oh,
of
okay.
people's
Bun
concerns.
fight. Hold on. I see a title for this podcast
Yeah, I
coming.
knew you were going
Bun
to say
fight.
that. I knew you were going to say that. This is
Bun fight.
yeah. All right.
Yes,
Okay.
love
You
it.
keep saying it long enough. It still doesn't make any sense. Anyway, 150 people from within the charity sector have signed and has been published an open letter urging NCVO to basically reconsider its position on its small charity offering. They have suggested that actually, NCVO is no longer has decided to do a massive restructure and basically remove these assets from public view. NCVO's argument is no, we haven't done that. We've done an internal restructure, as you would want us to do, to make sure that we are efficient and effective, and that actually we recognise small charities. We want to treat small charities in exactly the same way as we support everybody. All our staff should be cognizant of charity needs, regardless of size and scope of the charitable
We're not going to
organisation.
silo this. We're going to do it holistically for the entire sector. But my question is, so they had a department or people dedicated to small charity needs, small charity members. They got this infusion of intellectual property. You're saying they're not even making this material available anymore? The stuff they got gifted?
Well, it's unclear what they're doing with that material. It's
Okay,
unclear
okay.
what they're doing. Now,
All right.
NCVO has come out and said publicly, and I think this is where we're kind of getting into now. I think this is the guts of the membership conversation that I want to have
Yeah.
because
How many members does NCVO have? How many
ooh,
members in total? I mean, we're talking about 150 people, some of whom I'm guessing are not NCVO members. Is this a big audience? Is this a loud voice or is this a pesky gnat flying around?
they've got 17,000 members.
Okay.
Organizational members. As of, well, the latest data is 24, 25 was in the annual report. So they've got just over 17,000 members.
Okay.
And as I say, I mean, those could be big beasts, those
Sure.
could be large charities with multi-million pound turnover, tens of million, hundreds of £1 million turnover, right down to, as I say, the local church group that's maybe turning over a few £100 a year.
Yeah.
They've got a big, broad church of membership for whom they have to serve, who they have to provide dedicated support, guidance, resources, assets,
Yeah.
advocacy, a voice. So it is a challenging environment for them to be this representative body for such a vast, never mind, not just size of charity, but focus of charity. I mean, you've got charities, you've got members who are interested, whose focus is on, everything from service animals to veterinary war veterinary affairs. I was going to say veterinary affairs as in
Get it, but
yeah,
every
but you've
membership,
got
almost every membership body has this same challenge. The
absolutely.
challenge of the spectrum, the challenge of the big tent, to have a larger voice in advocacy or legislation or as an industry, you need to have more members. The big members pay the bigger
Yeah,
dollars.
yeah.
This
And I
is
would
not new. This is
no,
not.
it's not. Go on. Sorry, I interrupted you. Sorry. Go on.
No, I'm wondering. I don't know. I don't want to play devil's advocate for one side or the other, but
Well,
where do you stand? Are you on the NCVO side that they can structure themselves however they want and we're valuable to members irrespective of your size and you're 150 members out of 17,000? So,
well, yeah. Where I am at on this is there has been this outpouring of grief directed toward NCVO to the point where its chief executive has had to publicly, been forced to publicly apologize for causing, quote, uncertainty and confusion.
Yeah,
they've had to be absolutely clear to say that we've not made our small charities team redundant, and they've been clear that supporting small charities is part of everybody's role at NCVO. What we are doing, as you would want us to do, is refresh our culture, ensure that our team is sufficiently resourced, correctly structured, that we are as efficient and as effective as possible, and that actually, and that within the context of being such a large umbrella for such a big group of members,
yeah,
we're actually, I think, we have an obligation to run this organization as effectively and efficiently for as broad a church as
sure.
possible. I
I
think
mean,
what
the members getting involved in how many staff you have, how they're structured, who has what job and what title,
and this
that's a
is my
slippery
beef.
slope. It's a slippery slope.
This is my beef with this open letter that was then published. And they copied in the UK Minister for Civil Society, copied in the Cabinet Office in Whitehall, and basically starts with, we seeking urgent accountability and public clarification on the stewardship and accessibility of small charity resources. And when I
Yeah,
read that, I mean, you can imagine, it's like a red rag to a bull with me, honestly. When I read that, the inference that is such a lauded headline right there, and quite frankly, right, it disgusts me, and that's why I wanted to have this conversation, because I read it and I was utterly, utterly disgusted that
yeah,
that NCVO as a membership organisation should be subjected not to scrutiny, because of course scrutiny has to exist, of course it does, but that it should be subjected to this type of public scrutiny, this public
yeah,
bloodletting, this
yeah.
vitriol is really, really, it just makes my blood boil, and I think it sets a very, very dangerous precedent.
Yes.
Um, and it shows a distinct lack of naivety and a lack of understanding as to what really is involved in running an organization, particularly a membership organization that is the size and scope of NCVO.
Well,
Um,
and these 150 people, I read the open letter, and at the bottom, you may note that it almost serves as a petition. You can sign on to this even
yeah,
now.
yeah,
So I don't know who these 150 people are. Only two names are mentioned in the introduction to the letter.
yeah.
But that being that, did the open letter come out before or after the CEO's apology? Because I wondered if the CEO's apology may not have been perceived as very sincere.
It came out. Oh, let me just double check actually, because the chief exec they went public on the 30th of. Oh yeah, it was after the publication of this open letter.
Apology.
Yeah.
So the apology, she says things like transformation is not for the faint of heart. Um, you know, we appreciate your disappointment with how some perceive we have handled these changes. Um, we cannot meet the level of change needed without making brave decisions. I'm just wondering if this was somewhat escalated by the tone of or some of the language in the
I don't.
apology release.
I hear what you're saying, but I think this open letter is so well constructed, and it is a well constructed open letter. I think it's misguided, but it is well constructed. I think this open letter has taken weeks to put together.
Yeah,
This
yeah,
is not a rushed response to that chief executive at all, at all.
yeah,
Um, and then I've read additional articles in there's a third sector magazine in the UK.
yeah.
There's an article that came out last week talking about the backlash. NCVO backlash reveals a sector fault line that only direct workforce representation can bridge. I think there's a lot of in all of this narrative. I think there's a lot of confusion around ownership and around accountability and responsibility. These words are being bandied around, and I don't think they're being used correctly. Um,
Hmm.
you know, there's this pretty fundamental expectation that you want NCVO to be run effectively and efficiently, and to have power and to
Sure.
have influence and to have
And the fact
impact.
that it still exists, the fact that it's still in existence, whereas the other organizations are not,
Yeah.
tells me that it's done at least something right. Whereas the other two organizations that had to shutter, you know, people weren't seemingly alarmed at how those organizations were being
Well,
run.
well, exactly, and this is one of the points. Absolutely. I mean, the reality is the FSI and the Small Charities Coalition, they wrapped up because small charities, didn't want to pay the membership fees. Okay,
Right.
cool. Oh, that's totally cool. I get it. They said we can't afford to pay the membership fee because we have to use our money for charitable objectives. Okay, that's totally cool. That's absolutely fine. But you weren't prepared to fund your own dedicated membership organization. But
Right.
now have the audacity to now, years later, thrash out at the NCVO, which I think is behaving responsibly, but the inference is that they are not behaving responsibly, and questioning stewardship. It suggests it's a questioning the way that stewardship of these materials has been questioned. It suggests something more sinister about NCVO
Correct.
than
Correct.
really is
Yeah.
fair, or I suspect, although I know
There's
is
a
true.
hint, it's not only punitive, there's a hint, there's a suspicion to it. And that's why I asked about assets, because the open letters refer to some pretty specific dollars. Where are these dollars? What have they been used for? So there's definitely it has an accusational tone.
It does, and it's driven. Do you know what? Oh, you get me started now. It's
You're
be a
sorry.
lot of
Okay.
a
This
lot.
is only a 20-minute podcast. Come on,
Well, a
rein it
lot of
in.
it,
I know you're
yeah.
looking for a bun fight. You're just waiting for a bun fight. Come on.
A lot of this is driven. I think a lot of this is driven by yes, naivety, but oh my God, is there a lot of piety as well written throughout this? Some of the best acronyms we have serve a very specific function. If we look at Chartered Business, the Chartered Business Institute or the Institute of Directors, I don't suggest they have the same interests or political flavour, but the structural representation is closer to those private sector analogues. And the suggestion being that if I'm
And that
not
being
of,
bad. That
yeah,
being bad.
the suggestion being
Okay.
that if I'm not of the charity sector, I couldn't possibly understand the charity sector. And only if you work for a charity have you got the heart and soul of the charity. And it's like, come on, guys, it's a £10 million turnover business. It's
Business.
it's got to run like a business. It employs people.
Yeah.
It has obligations to its suppliers. It has
Yeah.
contracts. It has media. It has legal. Yes, it has grant management. It has all. The only difference is that instead of having shareholders, the charities, instead of having shareholders to whom we pay out to, we pay out the cash for charitable interests. Yes, and I think it's a I think it's a really convenient way of voicing your disagreement with NCVO, is to somehow paint this as, well, NCVO doesn't really understand charities because clearly it's being run by people who don't, and it's like, well,
Yeah.
actually, NCVO is a charity itself.
Right.
So
So is this our open invitation to Kate Lee? Is this our open invitation to
come
the
on the podcast. Come on
NCVO
the podcast. Yeah,
chief
I
executive?
totally
You
love it.
obviously have fans here. You have people who understand and support the position that you've been forced into.
What? Yeah.
So
It, it has been, and they have been forced into it. It has been forced into it,
mhm.
and I think, and we have seen this we see this many times in the membership sector. Instead of allowing for proper process, people bang on about, oh, I want due process. We've got to have systems. We've got to make sure our organisation is as professional as possible. We want to make sure that we are, we're talking about professionalism. We have to exemplify professionalism. But then the moment that the membership body does something I don't like, well,
Uh-huh.
professionalism goes out the window. And then I go run
Well,
into the press.
yeah. And what happened to process and governance? And I mean, when you send an open letter to the full membership and then to government entities and the media,
Yeah.
you're circumventing the process.
Yeah.
You're throwing a temper tantrum in the public Again, I'm still questioning who these 150 people are, since I could sign on to this at the bottom of this letter right now.
Well, indeed, indeed, and I think
Well, I'm glad you brought this up. This is obviously an ongoing, evolving situation. I would love for Kate Lee to join us. Or who are the people on this open letter? I know we're just calling people out in public now.
Well, I mean, they are in
But
public already. They are in public
right.
already, aren't they? Fiona Murray and Vic Hancock Fell, who are specialists and supporters working within the small charity sector. That's who signed. That's who's written this open letter. They,
Yeah.
from what I can see, they don't actually work for charities directly.
How dare you? How
They
dare you?
are. They are. So I would, question whether they really do understand charities. Not like I do.
All right, so
Sorry,
we
but
basically we're ready to be the place where this bun fight is hashed out. We're ready to be the referees of this and help facilitate
I
and
don't. Yeah.
moderate this discussion.
And I don't want it to be a bun fight. I don't want it to be a fight. I want no. Let me just finish with this. I want it to be respectful. I want it.
It should be.
I want this open letter genuinely just doesn't show any understanding or respect for the challenges that NCVO is dealing with. And instead of taking a moment, having a conversation behind the scenes, saying, "What's going on, guys? Is there something we can do to work this out? Because this is a bit, it's not going to land well." Instead of having that adult conversation, they've published an open letter and now
Yeah.
called out and put the chief exec in and her team in such a difficult, unnecessarily difficult
Yeah.
position. That's not fair. That's not fair at
Well,
all.
and to the outside public, to the potential donor, to the
Yeah,
potential supporter of charities, this doesn't do anything for the sector's credibility,
nothing at all.
on
Nothing at
the
all.
whole. Well, again, thank you for bringing this to us. I'm excited to learn more. I hope we do get to have some of the individuals who are directly involved, and it is symptomatic of larger and different problems. So we'll put some links to the articles
Yeah,
in our show notes, and
yeah.
encourage your feedback and your take on some of this, whatever country you're from, or whatever your charitable sector looks like. Any last thoughts, sir? Okay, that's that's perfect. That's perfect. Until next time, put your members and your mission first.